Hey everyone, this is Alex, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to episode 8 of the Alexander Robinson Movie News Show for July 3rd, 2016, the day just before we celebrate our Independence Day. Not much going on in my personal life. I don't know. I feel like I always have to start these podcasts with like something that's going on in the world. Except that, yeah, it's the 3-day weekend. It's 4th of July weekend. Hope you all are doing well. Hope you're enjoying, those fireworks. Hope you're, not, maybe on July 3rd, because people have a tendency to, launch fireworks prematurely, but whatever, that's cool. Anything to celebrate the American spirit, that's fine for them. So, we're just gonna get into the movie news, and there's quite a few stuff to talk about. Mainly there's, like, 3 stories that are actually worth mentioning for me that I found, and then there's like 3 things that I can just gloss over, and then obviously at the end we'll have the Blu-ray releases. So let's jump into the first bit of news from the Mouse House, Disney, more specifically Walt Disney Animation Studios. From Entertainment Weekly, Wreck-It Ralph 2 officially announced at Disney. John C. Reilly returns in the sequel, arriving March 9th, 2018. So, pretty much a year and a half from now. You all remember Wreck-It Ralph from 2012, right? Basically, it was like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but for video game characters. Or I guess Toy Story for video game characters. But regardless, I thought it was a really good movie. It was my favorite animated movie of the year it came out, 2012. Yeah, it was just a really fun movie all around, and one of Disney's best. Or at least in this 3rd golden age of Disney animation. Like, there are tons of other Disney movies if you want to count their entire catalog, but within this new era of Disney animation, I think Wreck-It Ralph is one of their best. But anyway, here's news on the sequel. And again, this comes from Entertainment Weekly. He's gonna wreck it again. Disney announced Thursday that a sequel to its 2012 film Wreck-It Ralph is officially in development over at the studio's animation arm, slated for release on March 9th, 2018. The sequel was unofficially announced earlier this spring by John C. Reilly, who voices the titular not-so-bad bad guy. In Wreck-It Ralph 2, Reilly will once more return to voice video game villain Wreck-It Ralph, who in the first film had to reconcile his archetype of arcade boss with his real desire to become a hero. Concept art released during the announcement on Facebook Live shows Ralph going digital, standing with sidekick Vanellope over billboards parodying Google, Amazon, and if you really look closely at the image, there's it's making fun of Amazon, Google, it's making fun of BuzzFeed, and I want to say it's also making fun of Pornhub, where there's a little thing here that says Lubhub, which, okay, Disney, that's fine for you. So I've heard about a Wreck-It Ralph sequel for some time, and whenever I heard about it, it's mainly with the idea that they're going to bring in Mario into the movie from Super Mario Brothers. But here, it's now looking like they're going a different route, which would probably be good, because if you do a sequel, you just don't want to repeat the first movie. You want to kind of expand on it. And I think the idea of going to the internet is kind of a cool idea when you think about it. Do we really need a Wreck-It Ralph sequel? Probably not, but I imagine it's going to be very enjoyable if it's from the same people who made the original Wreck-It Ralph. It says here that Rich Moore, who directed the first film and recently guided Zootopia into its billion-dollar box office, will co-direct the sequel with Phil Johnston, who co-scripted the original with Frozen's Jennifer Lee. Reading that, I just was like, wait a minute, did Zootopia cross the billion-dollar mark? I'm about to look that up right now, because I know it made $900 million worldwide. I didn't know it hit $1 billion. Nope, it hit $1 billion. Good for them. So Disney is really on a roll. So yeah, that's news from Disney Animation Studios. We're getting Wreck-It Ralph 2 for March 9th, 2018. Now, moving from Walt Disney Animation Studios to Pixar Animation. This story once again comes from Entertainment Weekly, and it's that Pixar has no sequels planned for Ratatouille, WALL-E, or Inside Out anytime soon. Here's what the article says. It's perfectly understandable to wonder why there are no rats, robots, or anthropomorphized emotions on Pixar's upcoming slate of sequels, which kicked off with Finding Dory and continues through 2019 with Cars 3, which is their next movie, Toy Story 4, which we really don't need, and The Incredibles 2, the only Pixar sequel that everyone's been demanding for. In a recent chat with Entertainment Weekly, Pixar president Jim Morris spoke about the studio's development process, why certain sequels made the cut, and why you won't be seeing anything less than original at Pixar for quite some time. Here's what he says, quote, "Most studios jump on doing a sequel as soon as they have a successful film, but our business model is a filmmaking model, and we don't make a sequel unless the director of the original film has an idea that they like and are willing to go forward," Morris explains. A sequel in some regards is even harder than the original because you've got this defined world, which on one hand is a leg up, and on the other hand has expectations that you can't disappoint on. Close quote. So that's pretty much the idea. Jim Morris also goes on to say, quote, "Everything after Toy Story and The Incredibles is an original right now." Original. I think that's a mistype, but basically what it's saying, like, after The Incredibles 2 is the last sequel that's currently slated for Pixar, and after that it's just going to be original content, which to that I say good. I mean, as much as I love the Toy Story movies, you heard me praise about the Toy Story movies last year when I did my review for all the Pixar movies, and how I was extremely disappointed in Cars 2. Pixar should never, ever do sequels. Again, Toy Story worked. It worked brilliantly. But, Cars 2, I mean, I know John Lasseter was inspired by a world tour he did when promoting the first Cars, but it just seemed very much like a money maker. Like, it's just there for money and to sell more Cars merchandise. I thought Monsters University was okay, nothing great. And then Finding Dory, I did like, just nowhere near as good as the original. So I'm glad that after The Incredibles 2, Pixar is doing original stuff. Because when you look at all the stuff that Pixar has done, the original stuff, like, let's just take Finding Nemo. Even though Finding Nemo has a sequel, when you take Finding Nemo, WALL-E, Up, Ratatouille, Inside Out, and among others, they are better than most of the live-action original films that come every year. Because Pixar really knows how to make some of the best movies ever made. And even though they are animated, like I've said this before in my review, doesn't matter that they're animated. They are real movies, and they speak to a lot of people. So I'm really glad that after The Incredibles 2, Pixar will not be doing sequels for a long time, because they just need to stick with original content. Nobody does it better than Pixar. Alright, you know what? We're actually going to take a small break, and when we come back, we're going to delve into more news. One thing that I could really talk about, and the others that are just kind of worth mentioning. So just hang tight, we'll be right back. Love what I'm doing on this channel? Love watching movie reviews, let's plays, or podcasts? Want to help the channel grow even further? Then you can go over to patreon.com/TheRealMrRobinson and give out a monthly donation, and you'll help the channel grow. In return, you'll get special rewards such as access to retro reviews, let's plays, and podcasts before anyone else does. And if you don't want to donate or can't donate, then hey, that's perfectly awesome. You get awesome content regardless. But the really cool thing is, you can donate maybe as little as a penny. You can donate a penny a month if you want. So, I mean, any little bit will do, and your support is greatly appreciated. So again, that's patreon.com/TheRealMrRobinson. Go over there and donate, help this channel grow. Again, patreon.com/TheRealMrRobinson. Alright, we're back from that break, and let's kind of move over to television for a second. I don't normally like to talk about television because, I mean, as the name of this podcast suggests, it's the Alexander Robinson movie news show, but I feel like Game of Thrones is so cinematic, like, that it could really pass as a movie that I think it's okay to talk about. Plus, it's Game of Thrones. So, this basically concerns the end of the series, or just kind of touches upon it. This comes from Forbes.com. It looks like Game of Thrones really does only have 13 episodes left. And here's what the article says. After this Sunday's explosive Game of Thrones finale, fans are anxious that they have to wait an entire year to see how things shake out in Season 7. But now it seems like Game of Thrones is very much drawing to a close as showrunners D.B. Wellis and David Benioff, I hope I pronounced your last names correctly. If I didn't, then sorry, do not seem to have changed their minds since they discussed the end of the show last year. It looks like Game of Thrones will probably end in just 2 more seasons with only 13 episodes between them. The showrunners talked about this idea before Season 6 even started, which ran contrary to HBO's wish that the show would go for a full 10 years of 10-episode seasons. Now it seems like their plans have not changed, and they told us... And they told as much to Deadline. Okay, this is just a long quote, and it does contain spoilers for the season finale, so I won't really get into it. But, basically, the idea is that it could have, like, 18 episodes. No, not 18. 15 episodes, because I heard one of the directors in an interview say that Season 7 might only have 7 episodes. Because, with HBO series, they have 10 episodes apiece. Which is good, because you don't drag out for too long, but you manage to tell enough story within that limitation. So... And when you watch the end of Season 6, you can tell that it is really coming to an end, even though the series is past a point where they don't follow the books anymore because George R. R. Martin is very slow at writing books. That's just what it seems like, since they're just making their stuff up. Even though I believe George R. R. Martin did tell the showrunners how the series would end, like what his ideas were before he started writing the other books. But, yeah, this is going to be... interesting. It's going to be a real interesting time because Game of Thrones is a phenomenon. Like, in terms of the world of television, that and Breaking Bad are 2 of the most, like, best shows that we currently have going on. I mean, Breaking Bad's done, but Game of Thrones, it's funny, for Game of Thrones, it's the only show that, like, for most shows, sometimes I just don't, There comes a point where I just kind of give up, where I'm like, okay, the show's kind of running its course, so I'm just going to stop it right here. Game of Thrones is the only show I've watched, is where they hook you in every time. They make you go, alright, I can't deal with this show anymore, I gotta stop watching because, like, the show will break your heart at points, it's just too graphic. But every time someone, including myself, says, I'm done with this show, they keep pulling us back in. And I think at this point, it's probably best to just stay on board, because if the show really is going to end after 13 or 15 episodes, then it's probably best to just stick it out and see how it ends. So, I'm excited for this. I mean, honestly, for Game of Thrones, it's not a show that I'd really want to watch over and over again. It's just kind of like a one-and-done thing. Like, I'll rewatch certain scenes over and over again because they're so satisfying, like Ramsay's death, Joffrey's death, that whole Battle of the Bastards episode, I could watch. That's the only episode in the series I could watch over and over again because it's so intense and so well done. But, I mean, unless I had to show somebody Game of Thrones for the first time, I don't think I'll be rewatching the series anytime soon. But, yeah, Game of Thrones is about to end soon. It'll be really curious to see what the next giant thing that comes next is. And in case you're wondering out there, I actually don't watch The Walking Dead. I know The Walking Dead's a popular show. I tried to watch season 1, but I just never found the time. And it just doesn't look that interesting to me. I mean, it's just the zombies attacking people. Just, I don't know. Walking Dead just doesn't seem to appeal to me that much. But you know what? That is a good segue into a brief story that I'll just mention, which is that George Romero, the creator and director of such great zombie films like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead, is finally going to get his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which is pretty much, it's about time, because you give a shit biscuit bag, whatever, I'm coming up with bad insults, but basically, you give a shithead like Donald Trump his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but someone as important to the horror genre like George Romero, you don't do that. But anyway, it just says that he's going to get his star sometime in 2017. I'm looking this up on Blumhouse.com. It doesn't look like there's an actual date, but he will be included in 2017. And if I'm still around or I'm not working that day, I'd like to go see it. Really briefly, some images for behind-the-scenes images for Spider-Man: Homecoming have surfaced, featuring Tom Holland in the new Spider-Man suit, which looks good. I always hear people say, "Oh, the suit looks terrible. It's gonna be shit, whatnot." But come on, people, we've gone through this many, many times before. We see behind-the-scenes stills of a superhero movie. We think the costume looks like garbage, and every time it's like, wait until we see an actual trailer before you judge the costume. And every time a trailer comes out, those people who said the costume looked bad say, wow, that thing looks amazing. So just don't say anything. Don't criticize the costume until the trailer actually pops up. And plus, we already got a glimpse of what Spider-Man looks like in Civil War. Well, I guess that's more than a glimpse. It's an entire action sequence for how Spider-Man will look, and it's gonna be awesome. Sorry, I had to yawn right there. And one last thing that's just really briefly worth mentioning over is that, here we go. Is that Samuel L. Jackson thinks that Mace Windu, his character from the Star Wars prequels, is still alive. I can go over what this quote says, what he says. So basically, Samuel L. Jackson, I think to promote The Legend of Tarzan, which I have not seen, by the way. I don't know if I'll have the time to see it. He said on Entertainment Weekly Radio that, he was asked the question about, Mace Windu still being alive. And he said, of course he is. A Jedi can fall from amazing distances, and there's a long history of one-handed Jedi, so why not? The whole thing is bullshit, because honestly, Mace Windu is not one of the most compelling Jedi out there. I mean, I love Samuel L. Jackson, but Mace Windu just didn't have a lot to him. Even in the Clone Wars series, he's not one of the most interesting Jedi out there. And I don't think anyone really wants to see Mace Windu back. And plus, I mean, for a spin-off, I don't know. Mace Windu's not alive, because the way he goes out at the middle of the Revenge of the Sith, at the hands of Anakin Skywalker and Palpatine, there's no way you survive that. And plus, even if he had been alive, he'd still die of old age by the time The Force Awakens takes place. So I don't see this as happening. And as we all know right now, according to the two guys at Lucasfilm who check everything to make sure it's canon or not, Mace Windu's not coming back. It's just not happening. But before we go to the Blu-ray releases, let's move from Star Wars to Star Trek and talk about the final trailer for Star Trek Beyond, which some people are also saying is a music video for Rihanna's new song Sledgehammer. Which, I gotta say, when I first heard that this trailer came out and it basically mainly promoted the song from Rihanna, in my mind, I thought of the first trailer for Star Trek Beyond, which looked awful. It made the movie look absolutely terrible. But then I watched the trailer and I'm like, that was pretty good. That was pretty good, actually. I mean, the song, I think, the instrumental parts of the song fit well with the trailer. and make it feel more like the second trailer we got as opposed to the first one that just played Sabotage from the Beastie Boys. Which is a fine song, but it just didn't work well for that trailer at all. So, I don't know. I think it's a fine trailer. I wish to promote the song, though, they would have just made a flat-out music video instead of just putting it in the trailer. But, I mean, what's done is done. It's not going to ruin my views on Star Trek Beyond. Which is funny, because when Star Trek Beyond was, like, not even close to coming out, that movie kept slipping my mind. I was like, I keep forgetting that movie exists. But now we're getting closer, and we're getting some new trailers. I'm like, you know what? I am super excited for this new movie. I want to see it. I am excited for this new Star Trek, and I think probably the death of Anton Yelchin, or Yelkin, is going to pique people's curiosity, because I was talking to a friend of mine at work. He brought a lot to the table when it came to Chekhov, because if you watch the original series, Chekhov was not really, he was kind of a nobody, didn't really do much. I mean, the only thing he was really good for, I think, in Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, was nuclear vessels, which everyone made fun of him for that. But Chekhov in the new Star Trek movies was really like a mathematical genius, and he was a great character. So I think the curiosity of Anton Yelchin will get more people to see it than before. I hope it's good. I really hope it's good, because I've enjoyed the Star Trek movies. I really loved the first one by J.J. Abrams. The second one, I love the first half. Then the second half comes in, and it's just still good, but then the ending is just actually garbage, I think. I think the ending's awful. But, I mean, on the whole, I still enjoy it. So, hoping Star Trek Beyond, from beginning to end, is a better movie. So, that pretty much does it for the news. I'm going to see where I am right now in terms of recording. 19 minutes. This probably might be the shortest show ever, because for Blu-ray releases this week, I'm just going to name drop stuff again, because there's not a whole lot to say. First up, we have By the Sea, which is filmed by, I think it's directed by Angelina Jolie, or as she's credited here, Angelina Jolie Pitt. Basically, it's a movie with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. I haven't seen it myself, but I've heard from people who saw it that say it's pretty bad, so that might be one I'll skip. We also have, we have The In-Laws from the Criterion Collection from 1979. Not heard of that before. We have Only Yesterday, which is actually an old Studio Ghibli film from 1991 that was earlier this year was released in America, dubbed. And the two people who got to dub it over are Daisy Ridley and Dev Patel, which is really cool. We have the Dark Knight Trilogy Special Edition. Now, this is not the first time the Dark Knight Trilogy Special Edition has been released. Back in 2013, there was this giant case that came with a book, Hot Wheels for the Bat, the Bat Pod, and the Tumbler, Mondo posters. And so this is pretty much a smaller, condensed version of what they released back then. And I think it just comes with the Mondo posters. Let's see. Yeah, it just comes with the Mondo posters and a letter from Christopher Nolan. So, I mean, this probably isn't going to be that much big of a deal, because I would be shocked if there were people out there who did not own the Dark Knight Trilogy on Blu-ray. As much as I'm not a fan of The Dark Knight Rises at all, I'd be shocked if people didn't own the trilogy on Blu-ray. But that pretty much does it. There's some more interesting stuff that comes out next week on Blu-ray, but we'll get to it when we get to it. So that does it for the show. The shortest podcast that I've done so far. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, share me with your friends. Let me know what you think of all these stories that I reported, your opinions on them. Don't forget to check out my official website, therealmrrobinson.com. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, Riff.tv. And if you love what I'm doing here, whether it's movie reviews, Let's Plays, or podcasts, you could go over to patreon.com/therealmrrobinson, give out a monthly donation, and in return you get special rewards. So until then, this is Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson, telling you there is only one.